Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinsey. I am a security researcher and host of the Hack5 channel. And today, per usual, we have my good friend and fellow hacker and host, Alex, on to answer your hacking questions. Alex, good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So we have been up to a lot in the last week, although mostly still just recovering from the RSA conference. But a quick little announcement, both Alex and I are going to be speaking at the upcoming Hope Conference in New York. So that's really exciting. I think it's going to be Alex's first talk.
Yeah.
And you can find some more information about that on the Hope website if we switch over to my screen. So kind of exciting news for us. I just did my talk at RSA and I really enjoyed it. I met a lot of really cool people. So getting to talk at the Hope Conference is something we've been really looking forward to. And my talk just got added to the list, so I'm really excited too. So Alex, you want to talk about what you're going to be speaking on at Hope?
Yeah, could you scroll down to where my thing is so I could actually remind myself?
Here you are. Look at this.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking mostly about the development process of the Nugget and sort of how we've gotten to the point where we are over the course of the past year. I still need to shape the talk a little bit and figure out what audience I'm trying to appeal to, like if I want to talk more about like technical stuff, or if I sort of want to give more insight to how we made this like a successful business model for us. But the general idea is I'm going to be talking about the whole development process and all the work we put in to developing the Nugget project, both the software, hardware, all the project management we've been doing, all that, and hopefully give some of you guys or whoever turns up some insight to what that's been like for us. Because it's been quite a rush getting to the point where we are in the course of just months. It's been very strenuous.
Yes, it definitely has. And so my talk is going to be $5 cyber weapons and how to use them. Going to be talking about all these fun microcontrollers that Alex and I work with and what kind of stuff you can get started doing with them. So it's going to be nothing that's like super advanced or crazy. It's all going to be stuff that anybody can get started doing with just a little bit of Python. And I'm going to be doing some examples as well. And we might actually also be doing a workshop, right?
Yeah, featuring one of our favorite $5 microcontrollers, or actually about half the price, the ESP32S2, which is sitting on one of our Nugget boards.
So you can see if we're still on my screen. I am a security researcher specialized in open source intelligence and Wi-Fi security. It doesn't talk about my talk at all, but it does get my hack.gay domain in there, which I'm very pleased about.
Nice.
So that's super cool. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I frankly I like speaking at the smaller conferences even more than I like speaking at the larger ones. So the workshops should be really fun. We're going to try to pull it together and make it really interesting for as many people as want to come. So if you want to come learn about the Nugget, learn about what you can do with microcontrollers, and go to a great conference, then we will see you at Hope. Yeah.
We were also talking for some time of maybe doing like some sort of like online thing in the near future for people that bought a Nugget through Hack5 and would want to see that sort of thing. So let us know if you guys are interested, because we've been talking about what sort of content we would want to include in that, and a good roadmap for you guys to get started like creating payloads on the Nugget.
All right, so Alex, what have you been working on this week? Like as a researcher, as a hacker, like what kind of stuff have you been plugging away at?
So I have been getting around to refactoring a lot of the code that we ended up shipping out with. So when we launched we did a soft launch of the USB Nugget / Rubber Nugget a few weeks ago, and we put out a working interface. It was like the v1.0.4, like something like that when we initially pushed the project out there. But there were a lot of things that needed to be fixed. If you check out the GitHub repository, you can see we already have some issues that are being discovered by users, which is why we released this as a beta product. So I'm finally getting around to that, and also just doing some refactoring of the code libraries. So if you check out on my screen here, the hackhat tech / Nugget display library, I'm basically breaking out the interface library that lets you create like cute cat graphics, menus, and stuff like that on the Nugget display into a whole separate library. So that way, if any developers want to get started creating their own interfaces for the Nugget, it's going to be really easy to do that. I also hope to make something analogous to this in CircuitPython. So if any of you guys are just getting started with programming, it should also be easy to be able to generate these nice smooth interfaces like you might see on the Rubber Nugget project, the Invader, or some of the other softwares that we put out there. In addition to that, we've also been tackling quite an unfortunate problem where, oh God, yeah. If you guys follow Kody's Twitter, you might have seen this a little bit, but we're experimenting with a new supplier for the modules that we're currently putting on the host board of the Nugget. And it seems that there's a design issue with one of the components, like being left untied to ground or like something like that, that's causing a substantial delay when you plug in the Nugget before it like boots up. So we've been trying to figure out what that issue is, trying to pinpoint what's causing this problem, and also doing a whole bunch of like bodge soldering to see if we can fix all that. But yeah, that's the problem we've been trying to fix.
So if you switch over to my screen, we basically saved like 8 cents per board by switching from one supplier to another. But they messed something up, and now we're trying to figure out what that something is.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it doesn't affect any of our nuggets that have been shipped out already. This is for something that we were hoping to get done by DEF CON, but finding out that we might have accidentally purchased a bunch of cheaper modules that don't work is certainly no fun. So if you're an electrical engineer and you like poking around problems, we're currently having a big debate about what is actually wrong with this new chip. But people have a lot of theories. It could be this red oscillator chip. It could be this floating connector. It could be that it's an older chip or a chip that was meant to be destroyed. So yeah, lots of theories, and just goes to show how when you're dealing with really cheap microcontrollers, really small changes can have a huge effect. So
yeah, I think the best lead we have on it so far is from our friend MG, who makes the OMG cable. He suspects it's something with the RC delay circuit, which essentially allows the chip time before it receives power once it's like plugged in. So it seems like one of the capacitors wasn't properly tied to ground. So I tried bodge soldering a wire from that to ground, and we'll see if that works later. But yeah, that's an unfortunate problem when you have 500 incoming boards that are using this drop-in module.
Yes, absolutely. And again, for like 8 cents per board, like this really did not get us our money's worth. So yeah, a little lesson in sourcing and dealing with hardware. But aside from that, we've had a pretty good week. We are kind of wrapping things up in LA a little bit and seeing what we're going to be doing for the next conferences we're going to. Hope is the one that's kind of coming up imminently. But of course, we also have DEF CON coming up really soon. So that's really exciting. Not totally sure about Black Hat and whether or not I'm going to be going to Black Hat. Kind of depends on what they do with masks and stuff. But overall, really excited, and it should be a lot of fun. And a very busy next couple months with all the conferences happening. So yeah, it's going to be really cool. Of course, we are live in the chat, and I was shocked to see something that was just posted by Zam. Hello, Zam, by the way. Good to see you. So it looks as though Espressif
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, for some time, whoa, I just got unmuted on my laptop. Okay, so for some time, we've seen other creators in the space that are doing projects around like the ESP8266, which has been around for quite some time, like Spacehoon, who has like the deauthor and stuff like that. Lots of people have been asking for like 5 gigahertz for like that kind of thing, like Wi-Fi attacks, and also just like connectivity, because it's a lot less clustered of a band, at least at the moment, compared to 2.4 gigahertz. Because most IoT products are sitting on the 2.4 gigahertz band, and most things kind of are. So this is good in both spaces, both for hacking and also connectivity and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, if we switch over to my screen, sorry, it looks like we dropped off for a second.
Yeah.
You can see the microcontroller that we are talking about. So Zam just pointed this out. Often we do these like Wi-Fi hacking projects, and people ask a lot of questions about like, hey, like, are there any limitations to this? Like, can I attack, 5 gigahertz devices? Because most routers offer both connections now. So the problem is like our tools and all these other tools that are out there can attack devices on 2.4 gigahertz, but they can't really do much about 5 gigahertz. As soon as a device like migrates over to 5 gigahertz gigahertz connection, it's much more safe from the kinds of attacks that we would typically pull. So this is a really interesting update to the microcontroller line that brings the power to affect 5 gigahertz down to a really small package that's really cheap. And again, this has not been done before because the other microcontrollers that supported this band had extremely poor documentation and were not very easy to work with, unlike Espressif chips, which generally have pretty good documentation and make it fairly easy to get started working with them. So this is a really exciting advancement, and I actually have not seen it. So thank you. I guess this was released in June 20th. Yeah, so awesome to see. I'm personally really excited about this because it means there's going to be all sorts of cool 5 gigahertz hacking things that are now possible. Although I will guess that this is going to be pretty locked down, and some people will need to do some reverse engineering in order to unlock the hacking potential of this chip. So it's not going to support like 5 gigahertz authentication out of the box because they've done a pretty good job at locking this down. But there are some ways of getting around these lockdown features, such as recompiling to have like a function that has the same name as the function that's supposed to block all the bad features, but just making it like void so that there's nothing there. Like that's something that people have done to already get around these sorts of restrictions in existing products. So it might work on this one too, which would be really cool.
Seems also that it's using the RISC-V architecture, which Sam also notes. So there some of the existing like code bases out there, I'm not sure if they would directly port over from existing libraries that work like on the ESP32 series or stuff like that. I honestly haven't gotten the chance to experiment with the RISC-V based microcontrollers that are already out there, at least in the Espressif line, like the C3 and stuff like that. But honestly, Espressif has done a really good job with just their, I think it's Tensilica or whatever the heck the architecture or chip is that's not RISC-V based, where the performance difference, that nuance like doesn't really matter because it's also like a 32-bit microcontroller. It's already pretty damn fast, but I guess like standardizing to something like RISC-V is a good step forward. Oh yeah, Zam's also talking about 6 gigahertz. They're just launching the 5 gigahertz right as 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi is starting to become a thing. Yeah, they're getting there.
Okay, so one last little piece of news. So we talked about a little bug bounty we were doing for the Nugget a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to give a shout out to, if we switch over to my screen, DeadSec Enzo. So this user contributed multiple bugs and actually found out some really interesting ones, such as the fact that if you plug in a USB Nugget into your Windows computer and you have Android debug bridge running, the computer will identify the Nugget as an Android device and like try to connect to it, and it will like somehow like mess up the connection and make it so that you can't use the Nugget properly, which we didn't know. It was kind of surprising to find that like interesting edge case. So we promised a $100 Hack5 gift card to the person or to one of the people that was contributing a bug to our project. So we are going to keep by that and award a $100 gift card to DeadSec Enzo. So thank you very much for helping to make our product better. We genuinely appreciate people coming in and submitting issues for us to fix and pointing out when our stuff doesn't work perfectly. So yeah, congratulations, and thank you very much for your contributions. We really appreciate it.
And we look forward to seeing more bug reports.
Yeah,
even as counterintuitive as it seems.
Yeah, now you see the game is afoot. So we'll probably give out more if people keep contributing. It's fun.
We have a war driving question from Adam. He says, "Are SSIDs that are labeled RAI signage those digital billboards?" I just quickly looked that up. Looks like those are from RAI products, which are, I guess, smart billboards. If you want to switch over to my screen, pretty much that's it, I guess. That seems to be what it is.
Are these signs like actually screens, like the road signs?
I don't think it's these ones. These just look like regular backlit signs, but like these.
Oh,
my cursor
like the LED grids.
Yeah, the ones where you can like control what traffic symbol is displaying or stuff like that. Also, what I find funny is I'm seeing like a lot of like Twitter posts of people that are just like hacking random like road signs. There's like standard ones that have like the terminals on them and like posting credentials for those. Yeah, really I don't know how vulnerable these ones are though.
Yeah, so
I know it's pretty common knowledge like how to take over those like construction terminals that are just like on the side of the road.
Yeah, it's manual. You got to pop up in the box and type a password into a little like pin thing. I mean, that's what I've heard. I mean, I've never done it personally, but I've heard from people that have heard from other people that that's how you do it, and that the password's DOT. All right, so yes, you can actually war drive a lot of really interesting and strange like connected devices just by looking around and correlating the SSID with like some sort of like online search that brings you the product name or what it's for. My weirdest find has been something that was like something cam that was just an open Wi-Fi network. When I joined it, I could see myself through someone's dash cam parked in front of the restaurant I was sitting in. So it was like a dash cam open Wi-Fi network that hadn't been properly completely set up yet. So someone's vehicle dash cam was like broadcasting an access point that would let anybody connect and watch through it. So you'll find some really weird stuff just by war driving around and then looking for interesting SSIDs or open networks that have like a recognizable name and a way of connecting to the server that's like putting up the camera. So yeah. In that case, I think I actually downloaded the app that is the official camera companion app, and it immediately connected and like started like streaming the video. So often that's also a good workaround. If you find an IoT device out there or a device that has a companion app you can download and then just see if it happens to just automatically connect to it when you're connected to the same network, that often works, which is pretty surprising.
Yeah, that's a funny problem. A pretty common thing that we see is like small businesses or like coffee shops or stuff like that. They just don't segment their like network properly. So oftentimes not only can you see other people that are on the network, but also if they have like a speaker or something else connected, it's just on the same network. And if you download like the companion app for that, it's fairly straightforward to just like take over that device and like start playing random stuff.
Yeah, one thing I will caution you against just going after random devices with poorly secured networks is fun, if they're open like dash cams or something. But I've also had the experience of doing like some testing and finding out that a very vulnerable and open device was actually a traffic control device that was in charge of on some level, like switching like traffic signals. So obviously resetting or messing with something like that would cause a lot of problems. So be very careful when you're out there looking at open wireless things. While it might be legal to, connect to an open Wi-Fi network, scan around and find like an open server that's broadcasting something, or download an app and then have it automatically connect, it probably is not legal to then start running commands and maybe like shut it down or accidentally damage something. So protect yourself and don't, crimes are illegal. Remember that.
Yep. Oh yeah. So thank you guys for donating to the chat, but we get nothing money.
Some random media company gets that and it's not us. So yeah,
we're flattered. But
save your financial applause for buying some nuggets or something if you want to support us. We do appreciate it though.
Adam says, I've seen some red light cameras open and also seen multiple RJ45 jacks in there. What do you guys think? We actually just see like random RJ45 jacks, like just walking around like Los Angeles. We saw like a dangling Ethernet cable. That wasn't actually this time. It was the last time we were here though. But I would presume you could connect to it, maybe plug in an Ethernet cable and see what happens, or a shark jack. Hey.
Okay.
Do you have any clues though?
Let's be clear. Alex is not suggesting that you plug into the cable coming out
really
of the traffic control light.
It would be really cool.
Yeah. So maybe think twice before connecting to public infrastructure, especially if you're sitting there with a laptop and someone might ask you what you're doing. But I mean, those are often networks. So there was a case in Los Angeles where some guy was like asked to like take leave or was, I think, like temporary like laid off or furloughed or something, and he responded by causing the worst traffic jams that the city had ever seen in certain areas by logging in and deliberately tripping the traffic signals to cause traffic. So often these systems are networked, and it turns out like a social engineering attack or one disgruntled employee might be all that's necessary to start changing things remotely. So the person who did it got in a lot of trouble, but it still just goes to show that one individual is capable of accessing some of these remote like traffic things. And you don't need to be a guy sitting on the sidewalk directly plugged into like a cable in order to affect that stuff. But yeah, Alex and I have seen a lot of very suspicious Ethernet cables just coming out of businesses or like the second floor of like tall buildings dangling down to the street. So who knows? It could just be like a live line and just
free internet.
It could just fry any computer that's plugged into it. But someone in the chat also points out that yes, like a lot of open or seemingly insecure Wi-Fi networks could just be a honeypot. It's really easy to make those. So if you're interested in whether or not there's people in your neighborhood, hacking into networks and stuff, then it would be a pretty good way of testing that out and seeing. So I know there's a lot of ways of turning very cheap microcontrollers into something that looks and kind of acts like a router. So if you wanted to do that and then like catch people breaking into your network, that would be a pretty cheap way of doing so.
Yeah. Funny thing Zam says is he saw a homeless guy charging his phone via PoE, Power over Ethernet, which is pretty funny. That's quite advanced.
Yeah, well, I've to one up you, Zam, I've seen a homeless guy charging his phone from a high voltage street lamp with like a bunch of electronics like kind of twisted together. That electrical engineer had fallen on hard times but had not lost his way. That's real risk. Is this stream chat good? Yeah, it's great. Good question.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh no, although it does seem we're having some connectivity issues between Security Forward and Hack 5. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so we yes, sorry about that. We are definitely streaming in Los Angeles again, so
not
the internet
from our
connection
studio.
is a little bit sketchy.
Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and take some questions from some of our old videos.
Please.
All right. So, reaction to one of our old Q&As. Someone asks, "I wish to see more of this," and also Hacker Reacts. Well, good news for you. We'll be doing this indefinitely for quite some time. The Q&As, at least, at least for the Hacker Reacts. I mean, yeah, we could. It's been a while since we've done one of those. We'll have to dig up some new content. So if you guys have any shows or movies or recommendations, we would love to hear them.
Okay, so let me talk about the Hackers React. So this was one of the most stressful new ideas that we've done in a couple of years because of the takedown notices. So we would take a couple video clips that were already fair use and already hosted individually by themselves on YouTube. We would compile them into like a short series of clips, and then we would react to them and like stop the clip and talk about stuff. And we got so many takedown notices. Our channel almost got a strike because of this. And we had to go toe to toe with these troll companies that literally like look for content matches and then assume that by like harassing people, like the majority of people will just back down because they kind of abuse the whole process to make it very annoying and very daunting for content creators to be able to get rid of this. It's easier to just delete the content than it is to fight this stuff, even when you know that you're right. So the fact that we had to like go point by point on every single one of these was really crazy. It was something that was like super unfun for us. So the reason why we haven't done more of the Hackers React is just because like it threatens our channel's very existence, and other content creators on Hack5 were getting upset because we were like potentially like causing strikes on their channel if we were to bring it there. So yeah, like we just have to be very, very careful about that, because if we do get a video taken down or if the strike is found against us, then we can't upload content for a while. And that, affects everybody on Hack5 and on Security Forward. It's also very unfortunate when we have content planned. So yeah, it's just like a very, weirdly enough, it's a very risky thing for us to do because of the way that YouTube enforces content policy. So if you didn't know that, making a Hackers React series is actually a lot harder than it seems.
We have a question from Mieka. What are some good training modules for learning how to write proper code? Do you have a specific language that you're trying to learn? Or are you just trying to learn how to write well-structured code? If you could give us some more insight to that, we'd be able to answer it in more detail, and also like what kind of code you're trying to write. If you're trying to learn like scripting or something like that, I'm sure there's plenty of good resources out there for learning how to write like Python. A place that I started was W3 Schools. They have a lot of good resources for everything ranging from like web dev stuff like PHP, HTML, stuff like that, to also Python. I believe also like some web server stuff using like Django and some other like frameworks with Python and stuff like that. Yeah, if you could give us more insight, we might be able to give you a more elaborate answer.
Volker11 says, you guys look like you're related. Really? Well, that's because I am his grandpa. Thank you for that question / statement.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, you guys have a channel called Nullbyte, right? So I did have a channel called Nullbyte, and by have, I mean I worked for a website called Nullbyte, and then I was like, hey, we should make a YouTube channel, and they were like, no, and I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. So I did it, and they're like, all right, fine, like we'll pay you a little bit of money for this. And then eventually they're like, hey, guess what? We can't buy any more episodes because we're bankrupt. And I was like, okay, well, how is that my problem? And unfortunately, that company is still in some sort of turmoil and is just not ordering any more episodes. So because, Nullbyte was a website before I was there, and I did create the channel, but like I didn't create the website that like eventually owned that channel. yeah, all my content's just sitting up there and it's not being updated. So we're, of course, live on Hack5 and Security Forward now every week, and we're putting out content all the time there. So you'll find basically the same kind of content on Hack5 and a much better community when it comes to the people supporting us. So yeah, that's the story of Nullbyte in a nutshell.
Ed says Nullbyte had a great techno intro song. Well, so does Hackbyte.
So one question is, have you thought about making educational courses on YouTube, particularly for OWASP Zap? This is something we've been talking about for a while because there's a lot of, we do like individual one-off tutorials, but we don't really do like, a master class and using OWASP Zap or something that would like kind of really get you more familiar with all the different reasons you would want to use it or walk you through the features. That's because they're exhausting to do. But we've been considering doing it, and we want to start doing more online classes. Personally, like I have done a couple things using the Nugget project to teach about OWASP Zap. So you can host your own web server that's written in Python on the USB Nugget, and then use it as a punching bag to like use OWASP Zap and no matter where you are, attack this vulnerable web application that has some known vulnerabilities that I can like kind of walk people through. So creating these like labs that you can flash to a microcontroller and then attack all you want is an alternative to something like PortSwigger, where they will have like an online lab that goes down sometimes and then you can't do it, which is what happened to me one time when I was trying to like cover something on PortSwigger and the lab was down. So I had to write my own one. So yeah, we're looking at some different ways that we can, highlight some resources that everybody can have access to for relatively cheap and try to make it so that, the kind of thing that you're learning against is legal, is safe, it's not going to get you in trouble, and it's going to react in the proper way to like teach you how to use these tools. Because often like the lack of a good target or good documentation around it is really what's a little bit confusing or annoying. And I really like the PortSwigger labs, but the fact that they go down sometimes and that you're supposed to use Burp Suite when like I would honestly rather use OWASP Zap is annoying. So yeah, I've been considering doing more of them. I might do some of them using CircuitPython, creating vulnerable web applications and having like some labs like that. But really, it kind of depends on the target that we're attacking. Because standing up my own like AWS server and like hosting like vulnerable web applications, like that's not me. I don't want to do that. So that's really it. Like just deciding on what kind of targets to point you guys at when we're teaching like that is kind of something that we're considering when we make these sorts of labs. But I really want to make more of them. I think OWASP Zap is so useful. I used it to like rip like a radio stream like randomly the other day and all sorts of other like web inspection things. I just find it to be such a useful program to know how to use. I use it like probably weekly on even like non-security related stuff. Or if I get a phishing link, I'll like take it apart in OWASP Zap and like see what's going on. So like really cool stuff.
It's definitely more effective than just like using the inspect element tools, which is kind of what I do. I just look at like the web requests on like the Mozilla inspector
and the network tab.
Yeah, and then,
yeah, I do that too.
That's what
like,
I've been
I grab like a cookie, like using that, but like it's just so once you know Zap, it's like so easy to like proxy it all.
Oh yeah, you also can't. Yeah, with that you can also like stop a request before it happens.
Oh yeah, you can do breakpoints.
Pause it. Yeah, you can't do that on like a website.
Yeah.
Or like if the page refreshes, then you lose like all those requests, which sucks.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you can get away with just doing inspect element and like learn a lot about web applications, but like OWASP app is free, it's powerful, it has step through abilities, it has inspect abilities, and you can modify requests before it goes through, and a really cool web overlay. So yes, we will do more on that.
Chaplain says, I need help setting up rubber ducky payloads with the rubber nugget through USB-C. I already flashed with the latest firmware. Cool. So if you check out our documentation, there should be more resources on getting started with your first payloads. But presuming that you flashed the latest firmware, this should already have some default payloads on there that you can check out. There's something like the color flasher payload. There's a few example ones, I believe like Rickroll scripts and stuff like that. So you can poke around at some of the existing scripts that are already pre-flashed via this binary, modify them and see what you can get working. If not, you can also check out the payload repository at payloads.hack5.org. You can filter for existing payloads that people have written. I find that the Bash Bunny and Rubber Ducky payloads seem to work pretty much like right off the bat without a lot of modification. Definitely the Rubber Ducky. Bash Bunny, there's a few aliases you might have to change, but yeah, if you check out payloads.hack5.org, filter for Rubber Ducky scripts, you'll probably find a lot of good stuff there.
The intro music for Nullbyte, as far as I'm aware, is "Sweet September" by Vibosphere. That actually might be true, but it's actually the first song in like a like cyberpunk mix that I really like. And we literally just used that because it was like the first one on like a mix I really like. So
Nice.
yeah. So a series of confusing and alarming questions / statements. One of them, with your knowledge, why not do some Fight Club mentality and defend the why defend the rich and not the poor?
What?
We literally fight so hard to create free cybersecurity content that like anybody of any income is able to find, and we've been doing that for such a long time that I find that statement confusing. V for Vendetta, and then an attempt to human traffic Alex to Puerto Rico.
From the same guy.
From the same person. I will ask you to keep your human trafficking attempts outside of the scope of our chat, please. If you feel like human trafficking either of us to a different country, I would appreciate if you would mostly keep that to yourself or find yourself in a timeout.
Yeah.
All right.
We have a pretty meta question. Someone says, is it weird to look at the camera without someone there?
I kind of think of the camera as like my robot friend, like cyborg friend, and I look deep into the darkest part of its eye and like imagine it has a silicone brain. And that lets me talk to it like I'm talking to like an actual person.
I pretend like it's a single iris.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, like it's Mike Wazowski. We should dress up the camera as Mike Wazowski.
I didn't know what that was until yesterday when we saw some street art that featured that,
Mike
but
Wazowski.
Apparently it's, what movie is it from? Do you even know?
It's from Monsters, Inc.
Okay.
He's the green freak. For those of you who don't know.
So someone also asked, is the lazy script obsolete? Probably. The lazy script was always just something that was kind of patching together a bunch of other scripts, and that sort of thing breaks super easily if it's not being maintained all the time. So if you want to know if a script is obsolete in general, go back and look at two things. When's the last time it was updated, and how many issues are reported on its GitHub repository? If it's been a long time and there are a lot, then yes, it is probably obsolete.
I was actually just pulling it up to see that. The last time it's been updated seems to be 2-3 years ago. There's some other resources that are about 5 years old. If you want to switch over to my screen real quick. You covered this before, right?
Yeah, I covered the lazy script forever about.
Yeah, it seems to be like mostly, as you said, like strung together Wi-Fi hacking tools. I can see there's like MDK3, there's like flexion attacks, there's Metasploit, which is interesting. I guess it just like calls it Metasploit. That's cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, and some other standard Wi-Fi ones, but it seems like it hasn't been updated in quite some time. I don't know. They also had like passwordless generators. That's cool. I never got to actually touch this tool. That seems interesting.
Yeah, it was a good like just like spitball like security thing that had like a lot of the stuff you would typically use in an engagement that like made it just like easy to use and relatively straightforward.
Yeah.
But again, it was mostly a framework for like automating or setting up other tools, and it was great. But those sorts of scripts really age poorly as the scripts that they are trying to automate get updated, and then the framework that's automating them doesn't.
Yeah, I could see this being a pain in the ass too, like all the dependencies you would need to like run this tool. That would quickly get painful unless they're using like Docker or something, which doesn't seem to be the case.
All right, lots of activity in the chat. By the way, thank you all for being in the chat and being so active. It's really great for us to get to reach out and talk to other hackers and makers and people that like the same stuff every week. So yeah, if you have any good questions, drop them in the chat. We're answering them now. And of course, we're also going to go back and answer some of the questions that you have left on our videos. Alex, were there any other?
Yeah, I can check those out. We also have a question from Bryce. I remember you guys talking about creating a CTF. Are you still working on it? That's sort of been pushed onto our backlog for now, since we have like a lot of other problems that are currently plaguing us, but that is something that's still on our minds and something we definitely want to create. Because we are trying to create like more educational content, just generally like around like the Nugget platform and stuff like that. And we figure like one good thing we could do is like create interactive like content, maybe sort of like online, not like workshops, but maybe like little lessons that you guys could do, like how Kody made like his SSDP, Fisher breakout, to teach like very specific things. But of course, a whole ass like CTF, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, so we've been talking about like little, like basically like games that like last like maybe an hour or two that we can play, and like other sorts of things that might be fun for example, using the USB Nugget. I saw someone had a question about using theirs and writing Ducky scripts and stuff. So if you have a question, a specific one, feel free to drop it. But yeah, like using, you know, a USB rubber ducky style tool that's just going to send a bunch of payloads and stuff. And also like our product can be triggered remotely, means you can do all sorts of cool stuff. So we were thinking of having like a Raspberry Pi where like two players have to write a script to like capture it or something like that, you know? So there's a couple different things we're talking about that we might try to do for the Hope conference. That's kind of what we're talking about as the kind of soonest one that we would be doing. But yeah, we're always looking for different ways of gamifying cybersecurity, making it more fun. The deliberately vulnerable web applications also are really fun because you can make the hardware react when it's like unlocked or accessed or you know, logged into properly. So I think that's really fun, is the potential of hardware to make like lights go off and maybe smoke pop out or something, you know, happen when one person wins. So that's kind of what we've been looking at, is like kind of like microcontroller enabled CTFs, just because, you know, you can do a web application, or you can do like a Wi-Fi game or something like that. There's really a lot of potential. This ain't live, says Textile123. How does it feel to be wrong? All right. Sorry, moving on.
Gavin says, can we DDoS a network without using the concept of DDoS, that being distributed denial of service? For example, sending 100,000 packets to a network from a single network in 1 second. Yeah, an interesting attack we saw quite some time back was the middle box attack, which I don't remember all the details about, but it basically took advantage of like vulnerable firewalls and like very specific like online infrastructure that was vulnerable. And basically an attacker could use TCP packet reflection to just like make a request to the server and then have it like redirect to the victim that they wanted to flood with like a whole bunch of requests from a bunch of servers that they didn't own. So sort of, yeah, I guess you can DDoS a network without the concept of like DDoS.
Dre says, my comments won't show up. YouTube hates me. Sir, I think you might also be wrong. Yeah, so, okay, as to the question, it depends on what type of network. Since I'm a Wi-Fi expert, I'm going to answer for Wi-Fi networks. You can do some of the fun beacon spoofing things that Matthew Van Hoff has been showing off, where you can put out spoofed beacon frames that have malicious information about the network in there, like a really low power transmission rate, and make it so that a Wi-Fi network will stop working in a very, very specific fashion that doesn't use a traditional denial of service attack. So when it comes to specifically Wi-Fi networks and Wi-Fi connections, yes, you can do this without using like a traditional denial of service attack. It's technically protocol-based jamming is the way that I would describe it. But you know, it works because it's both, I guess it's giving devices that are connected to Wi-Fi networks bad information about the way they should configure themselves in order to properly use the network, and then making it impossible for them to actually use it as a result. So yeah, good question.
I don't know if we answered this yet. Some people are asking about I lost it already.
Oh, no.
But we initially scheduled like a workshop for last week, and some people are asking if we plan on hosting another one in LA, since we unfortunately had to cancel last week's. Sometime in the future, probably.
Let's switch over to my screen.
Okay.
As just looking at the numbers, it doesn't seem like that's not my screen. Okay. All right. Well, you guys are seeing something other than what I'm seeing, but looking at the test positivity rate of COVID in Los Angeles, it's shooting basically straight from 6 to 8% up.
Yeah.
And it looks like just kind of generally a bad time to have like a bunch of people all in one place. We can probably switch away from my screen because that's pretty obviously frozen and not what I'm talking about. Thanks. But yeah, so it's not a good time to do an in-person event for people that don't want to get COVID. And we don't want to spread anything amongst people that come. For a soldering workshop, we tend to be like all up in everyone's business as well, like, you know, over their shoulder, correcting their soldering, breathing. Like, so last time we had, how many people came to our last workshop? Like,
I think like 17, 20 or so.
Yeah. And that was
pretty packed.
It was really full. If we had any more people, there would not have been enough soldering irons or spaces for people. So unfortunately, I think we might kick the can down the road a little bit and have our next workshop be at Hope and try to make it a little safer, because they will be masking at Hope and we might not be doing the soldering parts. You know, there's a very slim possibility we might still try to do something, but like I'm kind of thinking I just don't want to get sick and I don't want to get anyone else sick. So it might be smarter to wait a little bit. We just came from San Francisco, where there was like the RSA super spreader event, and like lots and lots of people got sick. I got a horrible sinus infection and double pink eye, but not COVID as far as I can tell. So I would like to keep it that way. And since there's a similar spike in Los Angeles right now, it just doesn't really seem safe. So
Adam says, let's do a Zoom meeting then, a Zoom workshop. Well, yeah, we were proposing doing an online format.
That actually seems
We'll
fun.
consider that.
Yeah, that actually seems fun. So like we were talking about doing like an online thing and then like doing a little CTF at the end that people can participate in. So, you know, like that's something that I think like having something where like you can practice and then like send us your code and we'll like plug it into a Raspberry Pi and it'll attack, something like that maybe. Like that could be really fun. So we'll try for something, I promise. We really want to do another workshop. I just like, after getting sick at RSA and seeing how many other people got sick, I just don't want to be responsible for somebody getting like long COVID or something just for coming to our workshop. So sorry. I was really disappointed about it too, but I was also feeling so gross and my eyes were, I don't know if you noticed that we cut last week's stream shut because I felt like I had sandpaper in my eyes. So I'm glad that I'm over that now, but I'm not looking forward to getting sick again. So
awful.
Yeah, I did not want to have anybody else have to suffer through that too. I'm sorry, guys. I really did want to see you all though.
Chaplin says, I executed the paired example that Kody showed with Moo Editor. I did a drag and drop of the script to the web interface. I feel like I'm missing something. I watched all the videos and was baffled. Oh, there's also a question before that. Mainly with the payloads from the GitHub Hack5 repository, you say Bash Bunny, but is there something specific with the text from the payload I need to do? Yeah, so there's something we have to clarify, which is that we've created a slight dichotomy between the CircuitPython and C++ version of the Rubber Nugget. So the one that Kody demonstrated a while back, I believe, because they mentioned Moo Editor, is a payload that works on the CircuitPython version. So with the context you gave us earlier about flashing the latest Rubber Nugget firmware, I would presume you have the official like C++ version that we also launched with on Hack5. So unfortunately, I don't think you can do drag and drop the same way with those payloads. But it is going to be compatible with other Hack5 payloads that are on there. I don't know if I put out a video on how to do that yet, but if you want to see an example, you can check out my PwnKit video where I show how you can load a like a standard DuckyScript file onto the Nugget. If not, you can also check out our documentation, which I'll just drop in the chat in a second. There should be further resources on that.
I'm sorry, I just read the comment by Leo that just says high COVID rates just means your workshops are almost guaranteed to go viral.
I saw that.
That was very funny. I could not keep a straight face. Oh boy. And also congratulations to Zam for getting your Flipper Zero. We still don't have one. We really want one though. So at some point, perhaps we'll get our hands on a Flipper Zero and we can do an episode on that too. I know a lot of people have been asking about it. We ourselves have been very curious and we want to see it as well. So hopefully we'll be able to answer some questions about that too when we get one.
Oh, I can't figure out how to drop it in the chat. Can I put it in this private chat? Who knows? No, I think that's just for us.
And then Michael.
Okay, Michael, you put that there.
Yeah. And also to everybody just leaving like supporting comments and stuff, like it's always difficult to make educational content, especially like making Nullbyte like took a lot of time and energy and work. So knowing that it had an impact on you, or knowing that you got into cybersecurity because of it, or you got a job because of it, or it helped teach you something you really needed to know, that's super encouraging and it makes it all worth it. So thank you for sharing stories like that with us. We really appreciate hearing them.
Ooh, Adam says, I really want to get my hands on Occupy the Web books. I heard they're hot right now. Yeah, didn't you actually? Maybe we won't talk about that. But I saw he was interviewed recently on, who was it? James Randolph? No, that's one of our commenters. There's some guy named James. I forget his YouTube channel though. He's interviewed. He's also putting out a book. Seems really cool.
No.
No. All right.
So Occupy the Web is I'm not here to name names or talk shit, but when I started as the editor at Nullbyte, Occupy the Web like roasted me like unprompted for using a MacBook Pro and said that I couldn't possibly be as like that they were hiring posers and amateurs who like don't even use like a Linux computer. So like I think that as a hacker, you can be the like mysterious, secretive, like my identity is cryptic and I'm never going to come out and say who I am because I'm like, it's too dangerous for me. And it's like, I feel like, if the gatekeeping and like the stuff like that is like, I am a beginner at so many things. I'm not a master, so like teaching other people from my perspective of like learning sometimes for the first time and then turning around and sharing what I've learned has been liberating for me to not feel like I'm a poser or like I'm pretending to be like a super expert when really there's things I'm highly specialized in and know a lot about, or that I've had exposure to that make me very knowledgeable, but I know that I'm never going to be an expert in every single field. And I think it's unreasonable to put out that persona because I think it's a little like overblown to like, you know, be the master hacker when really like we're all specialists in like one area or another. And we might have some good general knowledge, but it's impossible to dive into every realm and be like a master. And it's not wise to like gatekeep people based on that. So I personally had kind of a negative experience and didn't find that individual to be super inclusive of beginners and other people that they didn't find like worthy, I guess, of like their knowledge. Yeah, and that kind of stuck with me. First impressions really matter, you know? And like if somebody, like that was one of my first impressions of the hacker community, was having somebody who had more experience than me turn around and tell their entire audience to basically disregard me and that I was like an amateur and a poser or whatever else. So yeah, I got a pretty like nasty kind of initial introduction to making content. And it was really a decision for me to like decide to make Nullbyte, because that was my first feedback, was that like people would never take me seriously because I used a different operating system than them. Yeah. So that was really funny. And whenever people bring that up, I'm just like, you know, like if it helps you learn, like whatever. I just don't think that like you need to be a master hacker in order to teach people. And I don't think that people should feel like they need to aspire to that identity, because you can be a totally normal person and still be a hacker and not have to have like some sort of like cryptoid identity around it. Now, do I have like a hacker name and like anonymous sock accounts and whatever else for like research I do? Like, yeah, sure. But like, I don't like make that my whole house identity. Anyway, right. All right.
Yeah, that's crummy. Also, okay, it turns out it was on David Pompal's channel, but I got distracted by one of our frequent commenters, James Randolph, so I randomly named it.
I'm literally going to be on David Pompal's show like tomorrow, so nice. That's very funny. But yeah, all right, so we've got some other questions. Is it illegal for us to hack or infiltrate a scammer's computer or website? Does it matter if the scammer lives in the US or outside the United States? That's such a good question. So the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act does not generally allow for vigilante behavior. So that means if you're doing stuff that is illegal under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act and you cause actual damages or losses, even if that organization might be criminal, if they haven't been found to be criminal, then you are still committing yourself a crime and could be blackmailed, intimidated, or otherwise arbitrarily prosecuted by somebody who doesn't understand, doesn't like you, or maybe has power and wants to, for some reason, shield that scammer. The fact that you have also committed a prosecutable crime is definitely going to complicate the case for any law enforcement people that get involved. So, I did a video on flooding scammers with a B-movie script in which I very probably filled up their database with the entire script of the B-movie. So I got a phishing scam. It was for some crypto stuff. I don't believe in cryptocurrency unless I don't have any, so I knew it was a scam. And I decided to use OWASP Zap to take the entire B-movie script and spoofed cryptocurrency wallet addresses and just blast them continuously with it. And that was fun. And I did not access anything, that I wasn't supposed to access. The infrastructure was set up for me to submit forum posts to. So I just assumed they wanted as many forum posts as possible. Like that, I think, stayed just onside the line of doing something to disrupt a scammer's organization or operations while still not being a whole ass cyber attack against them.
That wasn't really destructive. It was just like they had it coming to them.
Yeah,
but I mean, like if you're doing like full blown like retaliation attacks and like destroying their infrastructure and stuff like that, you can't really vindicate it just because they were doing naughty stuff. Like you can't really do that.
Yeah. So just be really careful. Like, is it funny to like mess with scammers? 100%. Is it morally right to disrupt scammers? Sure. Yeah, of course. Is it completely legal to go after scammers and do things against the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act? No, it's probably not. Right. Now, if you were doing something to, like, for example, protect other users, like buying a domain that's expired, or like otherwise like interfering with them through something that's like not directly logging into their account and deleting everything, then like I think like you might have some wiggle room because your intent was to help other people. But like if through some weird loophole it was not actually a criminal organization and you just shut down someone who was sketchy but operating legally, then like you might actually become the target of a law enforcement investigation, and that would be seriously unfortunate if your intention is to try to help people. So don't let your good intentions get you thrown into jail because you're messing with a scammer who ends up maybe being skeezy but like not being like illegal.
Yeah. So point of clarification that needs to be made.
All
So
right.
we get this question quite frequently. This was on your video, capture Wi-Fi passwords from smartphones with a half handshake attack.
One of my favorites.
Yes. Mustafa asks, I'm a bit confused. Is this like a evil twin wireless access point attack? I also don't understand why you need the half handshake to get the password rather than just using a wireless access point with the same name as the target's host Wi-Fi name.
Right. So, okay, this was a video about how I could be on the subway in Los Angeles and you could be sitting somewhere else on the train with your laptop and you could basically listen for the different Wi-Fi networks my phone is trying to find, or even create a fake one or a list of fake ones that are like for high value companies so I'm like looking for employees of that high value company. And then based on like my phone attempting to connect to that malicious network, grab a hash of the password that is for that company's like office Wi-Fi. So that's pretty cool because it means you can like try to crack it. You can devote some like pretty substantial resources to trying to crack that. And it gives you the ability to force employees to connect you and also to maybe like mail a package to that office with a malicious device inside that connects to their Wi-Fi and does a bunch of bad stuff. Like there's lots of things you can do with the Wi-Fi network that you extract from someone's phone. So the common misconception here is everything. Like I feel like a lot of people got confused about this episode. And people like ask questions about like why they need the half handshake if they could just go to the person's, like home or like office network and then just get it directly. Yeah, technically you could if you knew where they worked or if you had the time to go across the city and like get into physical proximity. This just means you can basically grab a hash for any network that someone has stored in their phone just by popping up a device or a network name that's the same as one stored in their phone, which is really simple and really easy to do. So yeah, the other problem is you don't know what the password is that's like stored in the phone. So you can't just create a network and then have the phone connect to it automatically because it doesn't have the right password for it. So if it's a password protected network, that attack doesn't really work. Now you can, of course, create like an open Wi-Fi network that's very common. And my favorite trick, again, is to just turn on like my phone's hotspot as a like Google Starbucks, like no password network, and then reroute the VPN to Japan. So everything from the people around me loads in Japanese as their phones automatically connect and start loading regional websites from Japan. So nice. Really fun way to just like test how this kind of principle works. So people are confused about how it works, but and probably one of my favorite social experiments.
Yeah, that's a novel attack. I haven't gotten the chance to try that out yet. I did cover that type of attack you were just talking about, which is like a karma attack, which is basically tricking Wi-Fi devices into connecting to a network that they already recognize or have connected to before. I actually got a question on that video, which is creating rogue networks on the Wi-Fi pineapple and using this to run one of these attacks. Someone just says, what's the point of this video? If you're going to blur out the SSIDs we're supposed to see.
If we don't do that, people post like maps of our house.
Yeah.
Like we literally like we didn't do that for like 1 or 2 times. And people are like, are you aware that in your previous video, you showed us how to use the SSID of any network to find out where you are? Are you aware that I was able to find your address? I'm like, come to my house, bro. Come to my house. Like, fine. Like, what are you telling me? Like, yes, I know that we said all those things.
Right.
So we do like a very cursory job of like blurring out identifying information literally just because people keep posting our address on the internet. And it's not even like it's that hard to find. It's just annoying to continually get that comment over and over. So like
they think they're really onto something.
Yeah, they think they're really onto something. And it's like, okay, like this is like a very dangerous part of Los Angeles, but like I wouldn't walk around here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But anyways, in that specific video, I blurred out the MAC addresses, like the whole the SSIDs. But I left the ESSIDs unblurred, which is the important part. Because I was showing how you could replicate open Wi-Fi networks like Starbucks and stuff like that. That's pretty much all that's crucial information you need for that video. And then I believe I also showed my cell phone connecting to that network. So that's a non-issue.
All right, so some very specific scenarios for messing with scammers being proposed. For example, some script kiddies hacked into my friend's account and is trying to make me buy crypto for them to manage for me. They have a file upload vulnerability that I can have root access. So like if it's your friend's computer that they've compromised and that they're in and they give you permission to hack into it, then like that makes sense that would be legal. But if it's not and you don't, then it probably isn't. And that's probably as much guidance as I can give you on that one.
Of course, it's always the friend. It's never you, though.
Of course.
But yeah. What is the best OSINT tool to look up license plate info?
I did a video on that on Nullbyte forever ago, and I have not looked it up since. So if you look up that video, hopefully it still works because I don't have another one. There's a couple that allow you to like use the license plate to find information about just generically the vehicle, but not the owner. That information is restricted. So I wish that there was private license plate scanning databases, because like I feel like repo people have access to that because they just drive around and record everybody's license plate and try to find vehicles that are going to be repoed and sell the data. So the data's out there. I know it's searchable, but I feel like it's probably behind a paywall for like repo people at the moment.
We were talking about an interesting business model where like some company that doesn't exist yet could give people like dash cameras for free, but it would actually like harvest people's license plates.
Stop telling people about the idea.
So
No. Okay, so can you guys do a small video on Burp Suite? I am trying, you guys, but the people behind Burp Suite, aka Portswigger, cannot give me a trial license to like save their lives. So I have been using OWASP Zap because it does the exact same thing, and I don't need to go through like a layer of marketing in order to get a trial license. And I'm literally trying to turn around and show you guys how to use it. So like the fact that they haven't been able to make it easy for me is so annoying to me. The OWASP Zap people have been great, / I haven't needed to talk to them because like there's no barrier to just downloading it and using it. So I could do Burp Suite stuff, but I just don't want to because they just haven't been making it easy on me. And it's not hard. Like, just give me a key so I can make videos about it. I'm sure like one person will buy it if it's like 100,000 view video, but they won't do it. So being stingy with the codes, that's why we haven't done more Burp Suite. But seriously, OWASP Zap, it does the same stuff as Burp Suite. There's probably a couple things you can't do, but like frankly, like it's such a great tool. The only thing is the documentation sometimes isn't as great. So that's where I feel like we could probably do some damage.
Taking a look at some of our old questions.
Yeah.
Jeremy says, I'd like to see a video of you successfully using DNS spoof to spoof Facebook to any user on an iPhone connected to a pineapple that has ever been logged into Facebook on that device before, which is everybody. That seems like a kind of sketchy topic to cover on YouTube. I'm pretty sure that would almost immediately get taken down if I showed how to do that. I outlined the framework of how that kind of attack would work. This was on my Create Rogue Networks on the Wi-Fi Pineapple, which is the very first video in that installment I did. But I did a follow-up video showing how you could use basically the DNS table on the Wi-Fi Pineapple in order to redirect connected users to arbitrary websites. So I basically outlined the framework for how that type of attack would work. And I also talked about some existing tools. I forget Zfisher, for example, which allows you to easily create templates for those kinds of websites, popular ones like Facebook, for example. So if you're willing to learn, the information's there, but I'm not going to demonstrate how you can just outright dupe some poor Facebook user.
Yeah, we're not going to get friggin' banned.
Yeah.
Every time we touch like Facebook or something like that, like social media stuff, we get banned.
Right.
All right. Hey, Alex, this one's for you.
Oh, boy.
I'm currently studying for OSCP. I'm going through a rough patch and I can't focus on studying. Any tips for focusing while depressed?
Get a fidget spinner.
Has that worked for you?
No, it actually hasn't. Shoot, I would need to think about that because some of my ways of dealing with that aren't entirely great. I find just, honestly, this is kind of lame advice, but taking my mind off that kind of thing for a while and doing some other tasks that can keep me like barely mentally engaged is nice. Like, for example, cooking, or also going outside for a little bit, like running or stuff like that. As for keeping focused, like while actually studying, I'm not sure. Just like break it up into segments. Don't try to do everything at the same time. Spread it out. Take breaks.
For me, I have a really hard time dealing with content or like learning things or working on things that are not grounded in reality that I care about. Like abstract things like really grind on me, and I have a very hard time focusing on them. And I tend to get depressed if I'm like spending too much time on them. So working on like concrete, short, rewarding projects like that are easier or like more straightforward, or you can just like follow a tutorial or guide, but still like use the skills that you're trying to develop, or at least like peripheral skills. I did a lot of like Raspberry Pi based projects, or a lot of like microcontroller based projects that were like 1-2 day projects, like nothing crazy, like nothing that's going to like take me too far outside or like get me more burned out. It was something I could follow like a guide, or like generally most things went right. And it was just like step by step by step. And I found those to be kind of refreshing and give me a little bit more of a concrete connection to the stuff I was studying and working on. I really find that some of the stuff that you have to learn is like so out there and so abstract that like relating it back to something you care about can be really difficult sometimes. So I have a couple things I do. One of them is crossover into doing art or things like that. 3D printing stencils for spray painting QR code, like all that sort of like interesting, like other stuff, like keeps a balance. So what Alex said about like doing things outside of what you're like hyper focused on, like engaging other parts of yourself is really important to make sure your identity doesn't just become about hacking. But also like while you're in there, while you're doing hacking stuff, like having shorter, more satisfying projects that you can finish within a day or two really, really helped me continue to feel connected to the topic and feel like I was accomplishing something, even during long spells where I'm really not seeing much progress.
Yeah, it's also hard to find like that sort of stuff like applicable sometimes when you're just like studying straight out of a textbook. Honestly, finding like proof of concepts that you can sort of screw around with, or like projects that you can apply what you're learning to, are great.
Yeah, my favorite music also someone mentioned for learning cybersecurity, Lorn, Lorn, kind of sounds, I wouldn't say it's uplifting music, but it makes me feel the crushing and impending weight of mortality and motivates me to do work under any circumstance. So maybe it'll work for you too. Do you have a suggestion?
For music?
Yeah.
Oh God, I listen to so much random stuff.
Alex loves happy hardcore. So if there's anything that gets him gassed up, it's that Candy Crush music.
God. I cringe at the thought of that.
Somebody else suggests drugs. Caffeine gives you focus.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we've tried
Fun
this.
way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I mean, there's some suggestions. Honestly, this is hard work, and a lot of it's very dry, and feeling connected to it can be really difficult. So hopefully some of those work for you. A lot of the like more hardware-based projects that are relatively short, like really helped me.
Tim says it's banana time.
I don't know what that means. I'm a cybersecurity student. I'm a student majoring in cybersecurity and would like to mention you guys in the following relevant class discussion. I did this for David Bombal, and students valued his shared content. Okay, what's the discussion? What are we talking about? Yeah, sure, mention us. But do tell me what we're talking about. Maybe I need to scroll further. No, I still don't see it. Okay, yeah, but sure.
Lewis says, what are the best sniffing tools? Depends what kind of thing you're trying to sniff. If you're doing like Wi-Fi, we probably have some good suggestions for tools. There's like the standard ones like Aerodump that you can use. There's Kismet, some other great things that automate Wi-Fi reconnaissance. If you're talking about like network stuff, I mean, just tell us what kind of sniffing you're trying to do. We'll have a better suggestion for that.
Somebody else says that playing Gears of War will also help. I don't know about that. I play StarCraft 2 when I'm really depressed, and it doesn't help at all. It just makes me feel inferior to the entire country of South Korea. So I don't know. Like that, video games don't work for me, but maybe they will work for you. All right. I think we're pretty much out of time on this one. I also have to say, like, the questions have gotten like better and better. So like it always sucks to go like when the questions are getting really excellent, but we will answer your questions next time. If you drop them as a comment on this video, we'll go through and make sure they're the first questions we answer. So if you're just getting on as we're leaving, then you can make sure to leave that comment and we will answer it next time and you will be able to get your question answered. But thank you to everyone who has been contributing questions. We really like to see them and answer them. Make sure to check us out on the Friday stream, which hopefully we're still doing as I think we're driving out of Los Angeles, but we'll see. And also check out the Security Forward stream, that's Security FWD, if you're seeing this on Hack 5, because we do even more streams on there that we don't do on Hack 5. So we've got, I'm not going to say secret content, but extra content where we go over the news of the week and also drop some other interesting exclusive content there too. So we will see you on the Security Forward channel. Big shout out to Veronis also for letting this be my job to like get to hang out with like one of my best friends, talk to all of you, answer your hacking questions. So yeah, we'll see you guys next time. See ya.